Okay, we are live.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to a meeting of the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. I'm Allison Walsh, acting chair for today. Before we get started, we just wanted to take a brief moment of silence to remember the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Thank you. We can begin with a roll call. Our chair, Nick Mazza, is excused, as well as our vice chair, John Nigro. I am here. Sarah Janelli. Alejandro Polino. Present. Jasmine Higgins. Here. And Danielle Melendez. Here. All female version of me. Okay, moving on to the meeting minutes review from August the 14th. They can be found in your packet. Does anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes? All to approve? So. Have to do a roll, or a roll call. Okay. Okay. All in favor, Sarah? Okay. Alejandro? Aye. Justin? Aye. Danielle? Aye. Next up, we have the CFO report from Amy Thompson. Good morning, everyone.
Before I dive into the financials, I just wanted to discuss briefly where we are with our efforts to reduce costs across the campus. Our main reduction in cost has been in overtime. With the help of Joe Galea, we've been able to reduce overtime costs up to, I'd say, 60 to 70%. We've also been able to achieve savings of between $35,000 and $40,000 a month on the elimination of our outside vendor for security. And at one point, the invoices were running upwards of $10,000 a week, so we've gotten rid of that. So annual savings there could be roughly $400,000 going forward.
And I should add, with no diminished coverage of security.
Yes, we have a full staff. We've actually brought on a couple of staff that were not previous employees with the college, so that's helped us reduce those costs as well. One other thing to mention, I'm currently working on the budget for 2026. It is due to the Authority Budget Office, otherwise known as the ADO, by October 31st, so that will be presented at next month's meeting. I'll start with the balance sheet. Just a few things to note. Some of the higher lines, we have $733,000 still in prepaid expenses. This is the insurance, annual cost of insurance for the college. Total fixed assets are $34,733,000 net of depreciation. And of course, our large liability of the bond debt at $40,470,000. Any questions on that? Moving on to expenses. Year-to-date July, the county has been gracious enough to reimburse us $1.8 million for expenses to run campus. Their bond issuance costs are $861,000. Insurance year-to-date for 5 months is $522,000. Moving down to payroll and benefits, $368,000. Like I mentioned, that will be going down in the next few months. Professional services of $137,000. These include costs for audit, public engagement, the outside security vendor, and appraisal services. And repairs and maintenance are at $98,000, including HVAC, roofing, and landscaping. We have seen a little bit of uptick in repairs and maintenance, and this is probably due to the lack of maintenance that occurred prior to the authority.
That's it. All right, great. Thank you very much. Next, we are moving on to our CEO report. Kevin?
Great, thank you, Allison, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the meeting today. Let's just jump right into this. I think the most important thing is an update on our strategic planning process, and which, as you all know, has been kind of branded as Reimagine St. Rose. And with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Smullen and Dylan Turk to give us an update on that. Is there a PowerPoint that you're going to use for this?
We do have a PowerPoint. Yeah, we're gonna mix in it all together.
Yes, Matt, everybody, why don't you introduce the rest of the team?
Sure, also with me is Zach Conley from Cressa and Margaret Erwin from River Street Plan. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna give you, we showed before the 4 phases of the project. So I'm gonna give a high-level overview of the progress on phases 1, 2, and 3. Phase 4 being the final deliverable, which of course will come at the end. But we're in the mix with phases 1, 2, and 3. Once the slides come up, we can go through that.
Sorry for the delay.
No problem. Okay. Are you, will you be able to advance on this more? Okay. You can go ahead to the next slide. So again, phase 1 being the site analysis and data collection, which we're nearing completion on. We're gathering the information on the buildings, existing conditions, photographs, ranking system of the different elements of the building. Phase 2, public and community engagement, as I'm sure you know, is very much ongoing. We had a great turnout on the first meeting. Another one coming up on September 25th. And then for phase 3, the concept deliverables and feasibility studies, we're really starting to gather some information, putting together some options for concepts. We're talking to developers and interested parties about what their visions might be for what they could do, what they would be interested in, and also using the public input to start to piece that together. So on the next slide, you can see this is what the condition assessment is going to look like. I showed you last time. It's a tool that's going to be interactive where you can go to the dashboard and you can click on search by building name. So for example, this is what the condition for Alumni Hall looks like. On the first page, we got the basic information about Alumni Hall, and then when you go into the actual conditions, we've got a 2-page summary. Sarah, on the next slide, you can see the 2-page summary rates all the elements of the building on a 1 through 5 scale, 5 being the best, 1 being critical. It's color coded, so the critical number 1s, which are in red, we're going to make a comment on those. We're going to make comments that are appropriate as necessary. Some of the elements are self-explanatory; they don't need a comment. But wherever we can, we're going to give as much information as possible, given that this is a high-level overview. A lot of photographs. You're going to have a lot of photographs that anybody can go ahead and look through, see all the rooms, all the different conditions. If there is a condition that's noted, there will be a photograph associated with it. So this is coming together pretty nicely, and it's really going to help us to understand what we're working with these buildings. On the next slide is Zach is working on market, community demographics, and speak to that. So.
Yeah, so our role is to work and understand who you are, right, as a community, and not just who you are as the Pine Hills, but who you are as a wider group of the population here locally. So first, I'll identify some facts that may or may not say much to you, and then we'll talk about what some of these things mean. Home ownership within a 3-mile radius. 61% are renters, while 39% are owners of property, right? Which, in the next slide, we'll talk about how that speaks to multifamily development. The gross rents, 59% of people within a 3-mile radius are paying between $1,000 and $2,000 a month. Your median age is growing pretty substantially. The 3.5% may not seem like a large jump, but when you're talking about a median age, that's a pretty significant jump in people over the age of 65. Actually, you'll see is growing by almost 12% over the course of the last 10 years. And your diversity index, you can see here how it ranks, how you rank 75 score versus 58, meaning you've got a very diverse community here. And that speaks to some of the development that we want to look at. And you can see that it compares to 58% in Albany County and 66% in New York State. Next slide. So some of what we're identifying, which doesn't look at the physical feasibility of these conversions or redevelopment, is just the types of development that those demographics speak to, right? The next phase is really understanding how these types of developments fit on the campus, given the physical constraints of the buildings, the sites, and the demand. So multifamily housing is one of the strongest needs that's being shown. That's both market rate and affordable. Mid-rise multifamily housing with amenities targeted towards young professionals, graduate students. Next is student apartments. Despite the fact that there are 3,000 some odd students that aren't here, there is still a large demand in the area for student housing, right? Some of that is being built, as you've noticed, up on Washington Avenue Extension. So now we really have to look at, is the demand there for student housing? Senior living options. That's something that I think at all levels, the neighborhood, the community, the county, everybody has talked about, is there opportunity for senior living? And there is, as far as the demographics are concerned, over the last 10 years or going forward into the next 5 years, it's estimated that the 65 plus community here within the 3-mile radius is going to grow by 12%, which is pretty significant growth there. So 55 plus or other options for senior living. No surprises here, educational uses. That's just not driven by the physical nature of the building, but that's driven by the workforce that we have here locally in the service industry. And then, of course, in order to support the housing that's here, street level retail amenities, food away from home, entertainment, and personal care are large spends here in this market, despite being kind of under the national average. So if you're focusing on some of those amenities, and the diversity score speaks to the fact that we need community spaces here to support the fact that we've got a lot of races, a lot of different ethnicities and communities that want to come together in space. It speaks well to that community center to support strong multicultural mix. So that's what some of the demographics are telling us today. Next phase, as far as this goes, is to really understand the physical constraints. Just because we're pointing towards senior living, for example, doesn't mean that there's property here that is right for senior living redevelopment, right? That's where we're teaming together with Matt and his team to understand that. And, the other piece of it is there enough demand from a supply standpoint of how much senior living can we support here? And so that's some of the work that we're going through. But the good news is a number of these things that we're talking about have been talked about at all levels already. There are parties interested in these types of developments. So I was excited to see that demographics actually say what the public is saying, that there is a need. So, and I'll turn it over to Mary.
He's got an M. We're making progress.
I've been doing it all morning.
I'm Margaret with River Street Planning, and Lisa Nagel from EDR is here as well. Just wanted to summarize the outreach that's been conducted to date and what we're starting to hear in feedback. So completed today, we've done a mailing to all residents in a half-mile circle, a mailing to all businesses in a half-mile circle. That's going to result in a business meeting in the next 2 weeks. Email blasts, save the date cards, banners, there are new lawn signs. Some people signed up for lawn signs. We still want a lawn sign. Ask Dylan, he has some extras. Now we're competing with the political lawn signs, so but at least these will be in the neighborhood, and I think that will help. Over 300 participants at the visioning workshop. Working groups have formed of alumni. We started out with having found 2 alumni. We now, thanks to the survey, have almost 70, over 80 now. So we're actually rebuilding something that got lost. And that, Nick Mazza's thrust behind that, but I think it's very exciting. that we can at least contribute to that issue. And so far, as of this morning, we're getting significant numbers of surveys, and something seems to have clicked. We're getting 20 to 30 surveys a day now. So it was 350 yesterday when I typed this slide. It's 374 today, this morning. So, and we're very careful. We can see all the information. We know that they're not one IP address flooding the site with 50 responses. It's all legit. So people are paying attention. Public meeting 2 is coming up, as Zach said, or maybe it was Matt, on September 25th. And we are working to define and schedule outreach to Albany County residents. About 24% of the survey respondents we have are from the county outside the city, so we're getting there, we're getting some input. Surrounding neighborhoods, Canaan Neighborhood Group that represents the Association of Associations. Pine Hills, we meet with on the 16th, the second public workshop, and then the Upper Madison Street Fair on the 28th. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on what we're hearing from people. So most residents that have responded to the survey check that they have family in the neighborhood, live in the neighborhood, or are an alumnus of the college. 40% of neighborhood residents have lived in Pine Hills for between 0 and 5 years, and 35% have lived over 20 years. So it really is on both ends, which is very interesting, I think, to understand who's being attracted to this place. Of the respondents who are not Pine Hills residents, 60% live elsewhere in the city, 20% live in the county outside the city, and other respondents live in the capital region or beyond. And many of those are alumni who no longer live locally. So they're not just odd strangers from Troy, weighing in from Troy. We asked people a key question about what is your vision for St. Rose, and the most consistent themes is the desire for mixed income housing that's affordable, accessible, and integrated with amenities. This includes housing for seniors, families, artists, and vulnerable populations, with strong emphasis on dignity, diversity, and the permanence of housing. The second most dominant priority is the creation of a community center. A versatile hub that has educational programs, youth and senior activities, arts and cultural events, and social services. Very strong support across both the survey and all of the notes that came from the breakout exercises. And this will be available on the web, you'll be able to see all of the survey results. They really truly envision the campus could unify many aspirations under one roof, particularly thinking about a community center complex. Health, youth engagement, intergenerational connections, closely tied to the call for green space and public recreation, including parks and community gardens and a public pool, either indoor or out. They're seen as essential elements of health, wellness, and neighborhood vitality. Strong support for adult education and training. They're deeply aligned with the values and aspirations of people in the meetings, but also in other plans, like the city's comprehensive plan and plans the county has done. So there seems to, you always hope when you start a process like this that you'll know about the buildings, you'll know about the market, you'll know about the community's desires, and there'll be some points of alignment. And we're starting to see some points of alignment. It's not perfect, but it's good to know that there are some shared priorities going forward.
I'm sorry, could you go back to that slide, please?
Yeah.
Could you do us a favor? I know you said that the most consistent thing is desire for mixed income housing, but on the chart below here, that it seems like there are several that rank much higher than that. Is that?
Well, that's, so
Could you just relate that to that chart there?
yes, the overall, we asked two questions, and I don't think we have the other table in here. There's two questions that are most salient. One is, what is your vision, right? And this is the answer to what is your vision. The other question is, what uses do you support on campus? And that's really where the housing support is documented. So we look at both of these data input sets, they're each about 300 points. So the overall vision, they want it to be a place where focused on health, wellness, and community connectedness. And when you ask them about what uses would help get to that vision, the primary answer over and over again is different types of housing, people living there, it being activated. Now, I'll say one last thing, which is that there are some things that we can't expect the community to come up with because they're unique or unusual. So if there were a need for workforce training space or clean rooms or something else, we wouldn't expect that to come from the public, that would come from Zach and others. So I'm not saying this is perfect, and I am saying that it's a point in time. And with so many new surveys coming in, until we close it, we will continue to see these things change. But to keep in mind that we're starting to see some alignment is the biggest takeaway I can offer.
Yeah, because as I look at this chart, it looks like what everybody's saying is eat, drink, and play. And so what the top priorities are, housing and mixed housing, affordable housing seems to be on that. Okay, thank you.
So now, as we start to move into phase 3, we're hearing the information from the public, we're hearing some of what Zach is getting from market data. We're also talking to developers about, what they think they would be interested in doing. We're hearing from the county about their interest in the campus. So part of the plan is to take each of the buildings on campus and put together 3 potential uses. So just as this is just a snippet, of course, this is just using Alumni Hall again as an example because I showed you the conditions assessment of Alumni Hall. So this is just a basic test fit of what would Alumni Hall look like if each floor were converted into, and we did multiple options for, this particular option happens to be 3 studio apartments, 3 1-bedrooms and a 3-bedroom on one floor. It's a tight fit. We've heard from one developer that their best case for Alumni Hall would be to just tear it down and start from scratch. We heard another developer that said, they like the challenge of taking a building like this and making that conversion, that adaptive reuse. We heard another developer say those are just smaller units than what we would typically build in this market for market-based housing. So, but again, we're starting to test fit it, we're starting to see what it looks like, and kind of have those conversations in correlation with the other things that are happening. So with that, now we look at where going. If we were to build some new housing that were in conjunction with what's there, some kind of, what are the different configurations that could potentially look like? And again, this is just an example. These are 10 different options for playing around with where things would fit. And then we're even using our 3D printing technology to take a unit. So on the right-hand side, that's an actual 3D printed, some new housing that, as you can see, that's the light blue that's behind that is where Alumni Hall is now. So that would be the fit of new housing in place of Alumni Hall with some demolition. So again, we're looking at all these options. It's not to say that demolition is the answer. It's not to say that adaptive reuse is the answer. Again, that's why we're doing this, right? We're looking at all the different options. So this is just a sort of snapshot. We're going to get together as a group next week. We're going to have a full day design charrette with our design team as this information is coming into us. And we're really starting to wrap our heads around what we're hearing, what we're seeing. We're gonna start to really push forward on this, getting into phase 3 in some real detail. I think that's the last slide. So.
Great, thanks. Any of the board members have any questions or concerns? We will have public comment later in the meeting, but anybody? Sarah?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. One of the big themes is just thank you for the data. This is incredibly useful as we start to have conversations and start making decisions for this. I think, Zach, a lot of the things that you ran through on your market data, those are things that probably rang true to a lot of folks in the room. But having the actual data, not only to be able to provide to potential users, but help us make sustainable decisions that we have backed by clear market data is going to be really helpful. I don't know that there's anything gigantically surprising out of there, but having the data behind it is really helpful for us as we go through. And then I did just, the thing that was gigantically surprising, I guess, is now when you put up the Alumni Hall breakdown.
Yeah.
And I think I could feel some of the tension in the room when, like, the one developer comment about like, oh, you just gotta get rid of it.
Yeah.
But I do wanna stress that was probably driven by, I had a pretty, robust reaction to that as well, because the
Sure.
square footages are really, really tight.
Yeah.
And so we're going to need to be looking at that, and I appreciate that you're talking with the development community. I appreciate, Zach, that you're gonna really be looking at these closely, because coupling square footages with what the price point would be, what the potential tenant mix would be for that, with the programs that might need to be out there that would subsidize something like that happening, those are all things that would go into our decision to determine whether that is a viable use or not for Alumni Hall, because, particularly those of us that are used to looking at multifamily redevelopment scenarios, those square footages are a little bit scary, right? Because they are, they're not market for what would typically be rentable right now in a market rate. So I'm really thrilled to see that you're starting to test those concepts. But I also don't want, as we're sort of showing these in public, I don't want to raise panic without having that detail behind it of sort of why some of these decisions and why some of these concepts are.
That's a layer we talk about, is the financial piece of it, which is, there's the physical feasibility, can it be done, which is a question mark, right? Because the units are small, and then there's the financial feasibility of it, which is what, if you can do it, if someone will rent it, what will they pay, and, what's the developer's return, and does it need to be subsidized, can it be done on its own without subsidies, that's a big question mark. And we'll be answering that as a piece of part of our work.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
So, thanks, everybody. At this point, I'll turn it over to our outside general counsel, Tom Owens, to talk about one of the resolutions, and Joe Scott, our bond counsel, will talk about the other. So, Tom?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, board, staff, and other visitors here today. I'm going to go through and summarize the first resolution that you have in front of you, 2025-09-01. This concerns the consideration of the authorization to enter into a second amendment with an existing license agreement with the county. And, to sort of get to the punchline right away, I'll go through this in a little more detail, but this adds, there's 5 properties now under the existing license agreement. This adds the Uther, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, that's this space here that we're sitting in. It's about 13,400 square feet of space, so it would add this space, this building, to the existing license agreement. So I'll walk us through this resolution in summary form. So basically, the first couple, whereas clause talks about the authority, the creation of the authority, how it came to be, what law it is that created it, the authorities, the powers and the purposes the authority is both empowered with and tasked with. The second piece talks about the history of this authority since its formation. It talks about the bankruptcy of the St. Rose, how this authority became involved in it, how we made a bid, how the county and us together came up with a financing package, and then successfully were awarded the ownership of these properties. So that's the sort of going down to the second page, almost halfway through. It also reminds us that the authority has entered into 2 very important agreements with the county. One is called the financing agreement, which provides that the county actually provides all of the funding to pay our financing costs, so all the bond costs each year, whenever those costs become due, the county has actually agreed to fund those financing costs. And then the second thing, the county and the authority also entered into, and this was all ready to close in timeframe in March. And I know this is repetitive for the board members, but it's good to sort of rehash, is there's what's called the operations funding agreement, and that's the second agreement with the county. And that provides that in addition to paying all the bond costs, the county has also promised to pay all the operations, maintenance, and ongoing costs each month. Amy's talked about this during her CFO presentation. The county has agreed to pay the authority for all of those costs. So as you know, the authority, those are the two main agreements. Following that, it talks about some specific authorizations, and these are common in all authority statutes I've seen, that our authority is enabled to do different things, one of which is to enable the authority to enter into contracts, licenses, leases, dispose, acquire property. That's laid out here. And then it's just history of the last two resolutions to which you've approved the existing license agreement, which I've talked about concerns 5 properties. And then it gets into just talking what I talked about as the punchline. I apologize for taking this long. It adds another 13,000 square feet of this building to that space. So this resolution does 2 things. One, it does it makes a finding with respect to secret. This is an action that we're taking today. So there's a requirement for us to make a determination. That's here. And it basically makes a negative declaration. And that's contained both in the resolution and in the environmental assessment form that's completed in this package. And basically, to summarize the rationale behind that, it's basically the county's going to be using this temporary space for the exact same uses that the college, for the most part, has been doing, whether it's recreational, office, storage, facility operations maintenance, security, and parking. Those are the spaces that are the subject, of this occupancy agreement. Those were the uses the college used these spaces for before. So there's no real change in the use. Of course, it's in accordance with the zoning, all the zoning requirements as it was before and as it continues to be. So the authority makes a determination that this is an unlisted action, and therefore, after taking a hard look and going through the statutorily required assessments of different criteria, the authority determines that this will have no negative effect on the environment, and therefore directs the staff to prepare and file what's called a negative declaration with this action. And then the second thing is it authorizes the CEO and the chair to basically negotiate and execute this second amendment. And it lays out for you, starting on section 5, page 13 and 14 of your board resolution, basically all the terms and conditions of this second amendment. It lists all the sum total of all the space. It talks about the appraisal that was done. It talks about the mission of the authority and how this second amendment complies and comports with the mission of the authority. And it says that obviously we're not going, as we've done in the past, we're not getting consideration. And again, the rationale on that partially and fully is that it's because we already have a financing agreement and funding agreement with the county. If the county was to pay for this, they would just then be paying us twice. They would be reimbursing us for what we're already getting. There's no private parties participating, and no private parties are involved in this disposal. So subject to that, any questions? That's the authority if the board should choose to move forward.
Any questions or discussion? We need a motion.
First and second.
Okay. Right. Roll call for this one.
Yeah, please.
Secretary Hyde. Jasmine.
Aye.
Daniel. And Tom. And then next up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to, since I'm in the corner, I'm going to join you at the big people's table. Good to see you all again. Before I go into the resolution, which is page 51 of your materials, what I want to do is give you a little history, a little background as to why this is before you. You might remember that in May, I attended the meeting here, and the board, after some discussion, adopted what we call in our firm a post-issuance compliance policy. And that's a recommended practice of all governmental issuers where in connection with the issuance of tax-exempt bonds, you adopt a policy to provide for the monitoring and the review of the use and the continued operations of the bond financed facility. And you did that in May. What you have before you today is an additional policy which reflects the comments and the questions and requests that you've been getting over the past several months with respect to the facility. So the action before you today is consistent with the original policy, which required you to keep an eye on things. And what this resolution does today is adopt a policy which provides for further guidance and some efficiencies with respect to the use of the facility. And what this does is reflect the actions by your CEO and your general counsel in terms of keeping an eye on things, and also ongoing cooperation between the county's legal staff with respect to communication with respect to the use of the facilities. Now, this policy doesn't commit you to actually approving any particular use, but what it does is provide you with guidance to make sure that a particular use doesn't adversely impact the tax-exempt bonds that you issued in connection with the acquisition of the facility. That's something that we don't want to do, and that's why we prepared the policy. Further background: the IRS regulations in this area are very complicated. If you have problems sleeping, I recommend that you Google section 141 of the Treasury regulations. It's not 10 pages, it's not 20 pages, it's well in advance of, well, in excess of 20 pages of regulations. What we tried to do was make the policy applicable to the types of questions that you're getting, and accordingly the policy, as you see in the materials, is only 3 or 4 pages long. But what we further did, and this was after further discussions with your CEO and your general counsel, was we prepared a 1-page safe harbor, because there are, as in any IRS set of rules, there's exceptions to the exceptions, and then there's safe harbors. And we prepared a series of safe harbors that would, and we were able to limit that to 1 page, because what we did was we isolated the particular situations that we anticipated you would be faced with, and then we provided that both to the staff and to the county to give them guidance as to what is okay and what is not okay with respect to uses of the facility, and the uses, whether those uses impact or don't impact your tax-exempt bond issue. So with that as background, why don't we go to the resolution? The first page of the resolution has some typical whereas paragraphs that we have used with you in the past in terms of background. If you go to
in your package, it's page 49.
and it's printed page 2 at the bottom. I'm going to now go to printed page 2 at the bottom. It looks like my PDF is packaged different than your package. So printed page 2, you'll see on the third whereas paragraph, we talk about getting requests for the use, various uses of the project sites. And that is consistent with what I said by way of background to why we're sitting here today. The next whereas paragraph, the authority decides to consider such use requests in a consistent and whereas manner, and further desires to comply with the post-issuance tax compliance policy. And again, that was the policy that we adopted back in May. We're your bond counsel. We prepared a facilities use policy to provide that guidance, and that's what's the issue of discussion for this resolution. Section 1 has kind of a general ratification and confirmation paragraph that we think is good practice with respect to a resolution. In section 2, there's several findings. And I think the most important one is, or important ones, are B, where under the Public Authorities Act, you are certainly authorized to adopt policies to govern the administration of your activities. And then C, item C is that is good government, good policy to address requests in a consistent and organized manner, and obviously further to comply with your post-issuance compliance policy. Sections 3, 4, and 5 provide for the approval of the policy and adjustments to the policy as if we've received any comments today. And I guess with that, I'll open it up to comments and questions. I think before I do so, though, I think to summarize, again, this is consistent with the policy that you adopted, the overall policy that you adopted in May. It reflects ongoing work by your staff and council. There's no budgetary impact here, so that's a good thing for the authority. And frankly, this is exactly the kind of thing that the authority should be doing as a governmental entity with respect to the issuance of tax exempt bonds. It creates a great paper trail for you in your file in terms of how attentive you've been to these issues. And with that, I'll open up for comments. Thank you, Pat.
Any comments or questions? Can we vote on the resolution? Motion? Second? I'll second. Okay, thank you. Sarah? Anything? Aye. Madison? Aye. Daniel? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. So we'll now have our general counsel go through our conflict of interest.
Yeah, so very quickly, this is here because it's on our compliance calendar each year. During this month, staff will be sending you conflict of interest form and policy that you've received when you first came on board, which you filled out. This basically provides you and staff with an annual sort of spot check on, do you have a job? Are you involved with a vendor? Are you involved with some entity or have some personal engagement that may conflict with your duties here? So again, this is an annual written check. We do it. I want to emphasize that it's not just once a year that we need to think about these things, though. This is something that we do as board members all the time. So as your board, if you end up on another board in April, you should tell the staff, oh wait, I just got appointed to some other board, so that we can make sure that maybe that the board of that company is not engaged with some contract or something like the authority. As rare as that may sound, sometimes that happens. So this is, again, a placeholder to make sure I can give you this sort of oral discussion once a year. But again, each meeting, each day, each week, as you engage in new activities beyond just filling out this form and turning it in, please keep that at the forefront of your mind. And again, staff will be, Amy and Antoinette will be sending these forms out. They're the ones you filled out last year. If your status hasn't changed, there will be very similar responses. If it has, you just add in your new goals, anything that may have occurred. So that's it. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to other business.
Madam Chairman, one thing that I would like to, we received a letter, an email, an attachment from the Vice President of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, which I would like to distribute to board members now. Information. And the email and letter are somewhat self-explanatory. If you like to take a moment to read it or whatever And I've sent this all out to you via email, so you should have had a chance to read it, but it's not for,
Is there any discussion about this letter? Is there any insight from the board?
After public
Okay, sure. Just one other point of business, before we move on to public comment, I just wanted to kind of plug, Jasmine, Alejandra, and I were on we recorded a podcast with the county executive last week. I think it airs next Friday, I believe, or next week at some point. So that, I think it was interesting. I thought that was a good conversation. So if people want to tune in, when that's released and hear a little bit more about, the insight from the county exec and our thoughts and feelings about how things are going, it was a good opportunity to chat.
The name of the podcast is Albany County Direct. It's recorded right behind us in the Hearst Communication Building. And there are, I don't know, say about a dozen or so podcasts that the county executive has taped since its inception. And welcome aboard to download it and listen in.
We can move on to public comment. Is anyone to say? Sure. Just give your name.
My name is Virginia Hammer. I'm a member of the board of Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. I'm happy to see that you all have received the letter. I just want to summarize a few important paragraphs that we feel we want to get across to the
Excuse
board.
me, could you hang on a second? Did you see if you kind of quiet that down a bit? Sorry. Some background noise in the hallway that sounds like.
Okay, there's a big mob out there.
I don't know if they're here for us or you.
I don't know. Okay. So I didn't memorize the letter, so I think I'm gonna have to just read some parts of it. So starting with paragraph 6. At your July 10 meeting, the board voted to approve the 90-day explanatory statement regarding the county's offer to purchase property with the appraised value as of May 23rd of over $9 million for the amount of $6 million, approximately 64% of the fair market value. The parcels that make up the property are, and it lists Hearst, the Herder, the administration building, the Hearst Center in the back, and 2 properties on West Road. At that meeting, the chairman assured the public that the vote, quote, doesn't permit us to do anything. Outside General Counsel Tom Owens also noted that once the statement is issued, it doesn't commit you to dispose of the property. As you are aware, PHNA does not support the authority selling any buildings while the redevelopment process is underway and consultants are seeking community input on the whole of the campus, including these buildings. We believe that the community should have the opportunity to weigh in and that the consultants should be allowed to complete their work on the campus as an entirety and present their report and recommendations before any property sale takes place. We respect the fiduciary obligations of the board and your desire to start paying down the debt that was incurred by purchasing the campus. However, we also believe that by allowing the planning process to be completed first, there could be opportunities for all or some of these buildings to be put to higher and better use, not to mention an opportunity to sell at a price closer to fair market value. While the early sale to Albany County might help the land authority move quickly to make a dent in its debt, an early sale will not benefit the greater community because the county already has use of these properties, so any community benefit is already in place. And it would squander the opportunity to get a higher price and put some highly valuable, state-of-the-art, long-time tax-exempt properties back on the tax rolls. This would be disappointing. As a large turnout of over 300 people at the first Reimagine St. Rose community outreach meetings on August 20th demonstrate, the wider community is deeply engaged and invested in this process. Based on statements by the consultants at that meeting, residents are also engaging via email and by using the survey on the Reimagine St. Rose website, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you very much for allowing me to read that. That was on behalf of the entire board of Condo Neighborhood Association. On my own behalf, I would just like to make a few comments, which are, next month, October 9th, you will be legally allowed to sell these properties, according to my understanding. And you will be selling them at a $3 million loss, more or less, because the property is evaluated at over $9 million for fair market value. Between October 9th and the end of November, using my little calendar, I've come up with approximately 35 business days. So between the vote next month and the report, which includes hopefully the properties that we're talking about, there's about 35 business days. So it seems to me that it would make sense not to sell the properties next month, but to wait and see, just for 35 days, what the recommendations are. During those 35 days, on October 29th, there will be a presentation by the consultants that will actually analyze land use and redevelopment scenarios. So we will get a lot more information between now and the end of November on the vision and the ideas of these professionals as to how the entire campus may develop, including these very, very valuable buildings. So I'm just saying on behalf of myself that I think it would behoove everybody involved to just wait and not to vote next month to sell these properties. Okay, thank you very much.
Just to set the record straight about what the Pine Hills, Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority did is they authorized the issuance of a 90-day statement to respond to the request by the county. This board has taken no actions about the sale of any properties on this campus, and we'll see what happens at the end of the 90-day period. So just to set the record straight, no decision has been made to sell these properties. It's under consideration, and this is a misconception that has been perpetuated by people and has been picked up in the media, and I just want to set the record straight. This board, the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority, has taken no action whatsoever to sell any properties to the county. The county has asked the board to do that, and that's a decision that will be left to the board to take care of at the end of the 90-day session. So I just want to make sure that misperception is corrected. So I have, Madam Chair.
Any other comment? Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question of Tom? The thing that you did earlier today, where you said you added the Hughesburg building, is that tied into this, the 90-day thing, the 5? I thought the Hughesburg was one of the 5 buildings.
It was already, so it is in that, but they're separate in the sense that one is just for an occupancy agreement in the meantime. So, if that makes sense, Mrs. Skinner.
Okay.
So, the other is a sale.
Okay.
90-day letter concerns a sale.
The sale, okay, all right, okay, I guess I understand. Well, the board has to understand, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Owens, I'm sorry.
Sounds fun.
Thank you, Chairman Walsh, for the opportunity to make public comment. Before I do, I had a comment from someone outside the room who said that the good slides that we saw here, they could not see on the video. So technically, if there's a way that screens could be shared in the future, that's great. I presume those slides are available on the website so that people can see them, or that they will be moving toward that pretty soon.
So they will be posted on the website.
Yeah, it's just an awesome piece of work, and I just wanted to bring that. So I have 3 things for you today. I have a thank you, I have an apology, and I have, I guess it's a request. The thank you is to the county executive. When he visited with the board several meetings ago, I buttonholed him afterwards, and Mike Lally couldn't drag him away because he wanted to keep talking about the Hearst Center. And I made some suggestions to him about the studio there, and I'm so delighted he's recording his podcast there. I'd like to see things happening. The Studio G3 is wonderful, And I'm happy that he publicly said he wants that to be open to the community. He told me something else then, that's not public, which is that he thought he might have the opportunity to find a commercial tenant that could use some of those facilities. And I
hope he didn't say any of these things to you with confidence, Jim.
no, he talked to me.
Just checking.
No, we're just public figures. I know the board knows some stuff I don't know, and Dan was really clear with me. He says, John, I can't tell you who, but I've had a couple of folks up from New York that I've talked with, and they see the amazing value in the facilities that are here, stuff they could not get, for anywhere close to that in New York City. I said, geez, I don't know anything, but in my head, I see a film producer coming, working on this campus and having, technical and creative businesses on campus. You guys know what's going on, and honestly, I don't. I just know what we talk about at the political level. But I truly hope, because that would be what the neighborhood's interest of having some of these buildings back on the tax rolls and bringing people onto the campus, working creative professionals, young people who can live in the neighborhood, and all of that. So I don't know anything, but I just wanted to thank the county executive, because he doesn't get enough thanks sometimes. He does from staff. Kevin's good at thanking him, but I just appreciate what he's there. People say he's a little bit of a cowboy. Yeah, he's going out and trying to be entrepreneurial and make things happen. And he says, I got this real tough guy, Kevin, who's gonna make the deals. And that's how it should work. We've got a deal maker and we've got a visionary, and the process lets us, bring more things into the funnel. That's what you're here for, Zach, to kind of run these things into the funnel and get options teed up in a way that can go from the county executive's vision to, to the deals that Kevin's able to close, for the good of the community. So that's my thank you. The apology, which kind of goes hand in hand with this, Kevin, you can help me with this. I heard that some people on your staff think I'm pushy. Could you please relay out to people that I apologize? I don't intend to be pushy. You know me, as a retired politician.
And Sean, I do know you, and you are pushing.
Thank you.
It's hard to get Sean.
Yeah, and just let staff know, or anybody else know, or board members know that that if they think I'm being pushy, I'm trying to help, and that I'm more than happy to talk or even tone it down if it comes up. Just get out to people that they can talk to me. And I'm here. I'm happy. I'm happy not to be consulted, but I'll keep pushing for good ideas that I think you can use, that I think the county executive can take and spin into gold. So that's my apology. And then there's the request. One of the things that made me most optimistic about this process is our Vice Chairman, John Nigro, who has not been here for a few meetings. He is, as much as the county executive, as much as you, Kevin, a huge asset here because he has connections to the universities, connections to the arts organizations, really to everybody in the development industry around here, everybody. The first meeting with the consultants, I think some of you were here, Bill and I were here, but John said to the consultant, hey, I think there might be some connections over at RPI, I would be happy to make the introductions. And then they went off and talked about some things. I'm sure that there's something going on with that now. I know that the early process here is focused on deal making, but I think a lot of the magic that we have here is in the collaboration. I cannot do it as well as John Nigro, but I do know who the people are who I think could be good allies, especially around the Mastery Center. I'm hoping, a couple of Mastery allies might introduce themselves today, but there are good things that can happen there, but with collaboration, sticking point that we're getting to, I know, with one of the organizations, we can get past it. And I know we're going to get there on Mastery because of the people involved, but there's some collaborating you can do from a real estate perspective that makes Mastery tie into Hearst, tie into this arts, focused economic development that we could have here. I'm happy to help, even though I'm the junior, person to someone like John or some of the other people, on the board. So that's the request. I'm here. I have that information. I promise not to be pushy about it if I can help it, but it is here and it's available to the consultant. You told me specifically I should get this pushed out to the consultant. I'm here to help in any way that I can do that. And I've taken more than enough time. Thank you again, Chairman Walsh. Thank you again, CEO O'Connor.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? before we wrap up?
I had just a question before, but I have some comments that I hope will come along and
State your name.
I'm Margie Skinner. I live about within this half-mile radius, and I am one of those people that is aged out. When I moved here, I was a young person, and Tom was a young person, Sarah was a young person, and I'm way older than anyone. Anyway, but I've lived here for 56 years in this neighborhood. Most important thing, you have done a great job, Margaret and the consultants and the report here. It was wonderful to see, as Sarah mentioned, the demographics and the important supportive information in terms of how this should be developed and who the audience is and who the customers are and whatever else. And I love what has come out. The end is in sight. The consultants have experience and connections beyond Albany, which I think is great. When I moved here 56 years ago, actually it was more than that, I moved here a couple years before we bought the house. And Albany was very provincial, and I was from out of town, and it was like, what right did I have to make any comments, any criticisms, any reports? Albany, this is the way they did it. I don't know how many of you go back far enough that there was always triple parking on Madison Avenue because those businesses would be out of business if we didn't let people triple park across the thing. Things have changed for the better, and now I'm the old whatever who's been here for 50 years and thinks, well, Albany's done this forever, but I don't think that. I think we need a worldview. We need to look beyond Albany, understand we are the people who live here, and there will be people coming in. I love that one whole bunch is less than 5 years, and then my whole bunch is over 20 years, which is terrific, because that's what Albany is. It's not the old people whose grandparents were born here, and if they weren't born here, you have nothing to say. Many of us in this room, I don't think, have grandparents who were born here, and here we all are saying, this is what we want to see, this is where we want to go. So I just really want to thank you. My one little thing is I love the sanctuary, and I hope that something can be done to have that be a place of rest and respite when all of this floats out, hangs out. I don't know, I don't know I'll be around for the senior housing. I'm in my senior housing, which I hope will hold me up until it doesn't have to anymore. Anyway, so I want to thank you for this and just want to give you my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Michael Kersey. I'm the Executive Director of the Friends of Chamber Music. We're a classical chamber music series based here in the capital region, with a long history of presenting concerts throughout the region. I want to thank Kevin O'Connor for all of your work and the entire board for everything. Danielle Mendes, it's nice to see you. We've successfully presented many concerts at the Master Center. Huge success and great enthusiasm from many members of Pine Hill neighborhood and beyond. You see the Master Center is a wonderful art space, a purpose-built building for the arts, and we just hope to see this space continue in that way. We'd love to help in any way that might be assistance.
Michael, have you met our consultants yet?
No.
Well, you should make a point of making that connection so they understand your interest.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? If not, I think we are going to adjourn for executive session.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a few other introductions, which I'm embarrassed that I hadn't done earlier today. We have with us today our PR firm, Megan Baker Associates. Megan is here as well as one of her associates here in Barrett. We also have some representatives from Albany County, most of whom you have already met. Dave Riley, Director of Budget and Finance for Albany County, but someone I don't believe you have met, and that is Sia Gugas. Sia is the brand spanking new counsel to the county executive. And so you will be seeing her face around here as we move forward, and I think that's about it. You've all met the Alliance staff and the authority staff, so I think that's it. So I think our general
Yeah.
counsel will offer a resolution to go into executive session.
So the reasons that the board, if they so choose to go into executive session today, are to discuss the potential disposition of real estate, the publicity of which would substantially affect the value, and also to obtain and seek and obtain counsel from your legal representatives.
Need a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Madam Chair, I ask that we keep our attorney Paul Goldman, Joe Scott, and our consultants, Matt Smallman and Zach Conley, in the meeting, and excuse the rest of the.